Okay, we'll get started now. My name is Christine Bannon. I'm a 3L here, and this event is sponsored by Notre Dame chapter of the National Lawyers Guild. A little bit why I'm giving this presentation. I was legal intern at the Electronic Frontier Foundation this past summer, which is a leader in these online digital technology surveillance issues. And a lot of the resources I use today come from them, although this is not endorsed by EFF. I'm focusing on, well, I'm going to do like a general overview of some basic like security tips and then specific issues relating to concerns about the Trump administration. So first I'm going to start with threat modeling, which is like really the basis of digital security. These are the main questions that you want to ask before you decide the tools you want to use and the steps you want to take to keep your information safe. So starting out, what information you want to keep private, that could be text, emails, files, the geolocation data from your phone, any variety of things. Who are you protecting your information from? That could be your boss, your government, a hacker trying to steal your identity, your internet service provider, your mobile phone provider, and then how likely is it that you'll need to protect it. So this is an evaluation of risk, and it's related to the capability of the, your potential adversary. So the NSA is going to have a lot of resources, whereas maybe an ex-boyfriend trying to hack your computer would have less. And then what happens if they succeed? So this relates to who's going after your information, what type of information they're going after. So, for example, there could be very serious consequences if you're holding attorney-client confidential information on your devices. Less serious consequences if this is just you like sending cat videos to your friend or something like that. I'm focusing on the government more today because the consequences are like most serious when your adversary is the government. Usually, at least, because they can imprison you, which non-government actors cannot do. And especially like in this context for NLG, for activists, it's really important because the U.S. government and governments around the world often try to harass and intimidate and even arrest activists. And like this was like historically, like the FBI harassed really seriously Martin Luther King Jr. when he was the head of the civil rights movement because they saw him as a threat. And now the government surveils a whole variety of people, but Black Lives Matter activists are one of them. So these risks can be specifically pronounced for people that are involved in activism and like outspoken about their political views. And then finally, the final question in the threat model analysis is how much trouble you're willing to go through to protect your information, to prevent those consequences. So, for example, like an attorney representing a client in a national security case would be willing to go to great lengths to protect your communications about the case, such as using like encrypted email, whereas your day-to-day communications with your friends would not necessarily warrant that level of protection. And I just wanted to introduce you some simple steps you can take and tools you can use in your own life that aren't too difficult to implement. And if certain information is especially sensitive or vulnerable, you may wish to go to greater lengths to keep it secure. But this is like meant as just an introduction today. So it's definitely not, there are definitely more steps you can take past what I'm going to go over. So this is sort of an overview model of how you can think about threat models. And then this is an ad EFF took out in Wired in January, right around the inauguration. So it's like a letter to the tech community saying like now, whereas like before they may have less concerns about government surveillance, now they really need to refine their threat models and their strategies to like protect against the Trump administration. People sort of like think of the government as like hacking, or don't necessarily think of them going through technology companies, but a lot of like the most effective surveillance is like partnerships and like working with technology companies to introduce like vulnerabilities into their software, like backdoors, or different things like that. So like you may have heard about Twitter recently filed a lawsuit after the Trump administration like requested the like user information about a Twitter account that was like critical to the administration. And once Twitter filed the lawsuit, they backed off. But it's just like these, this threat is more pronounced than ever now. So just these next few strategies and tools are just some basic things that are not specific to government threats, but are just like good general practices that would also protect if you had any government threats. So one thing is to update your software regularly. I know like it's definitely annoying if you're in the middle of working on something and it pops up and tells you to update and restart your computer or your phone, but when that happens, it's because the company has found like vulnerabilities in the software and is updating to close those or to fix those holes. So by leaving that unpatched, you're leaving yourself more vulnerable to any breaches. Then this is just like basic stuff you probably already know, but just like don't plug any USBs, external like devices into your personal devices, just unless you know where they come from, because often like they can be contain like malware that if you plug in like a USB to your computer, you can download on your computer and you wouldn't know it, and then it can like track all your keystrokes or something like that. So you just want to know the source of what you're plugging into your own devices. And the same when you're just downloading things from the internet, you just want to be mindful that you're getting this from a trusted source. Then two-factor authentication. I think you guys are familiar with it now because it's now required for Notre Dame email of the semester. But basically, and it's also common on lots of big sites now like Google, Twitter, Facebook, bank websites will use it. So the first factor is something you know, like your password. And then the second factor is something you have, so either your phone or a USB or something like that that's physical that you also need. So this makes it like obviously much more difficult for someone to get into your accounts because they would need to have access to both the password and your another physical device. So this really can add, it's like really simple, really pretty easy, and can add a lot of security. So really recommend doing that whenever you can. Then passwords. So this is, I don't know, some of you are probably familiar with it, it's an ex-KCD comic that like goes over like the misconceptions about passwords. So we've sort of like been taught to make passwords in this way by like adding weird symbols, and some like websites will require this, and numbers, and some capitalized, some not. And it's really not difficult for a computer to guess those combinations, but it's really difficult for you to remember personally what that password was. So the best strategy for passwords is to use something called passphrases, which is like in this example is like correct Torch Valerie staple. So 4 random words that are not like don't form a sentence or anything like that, that form like a longer string of characters. So just like for that alone, like these are none of them are capitalized. There's no letter, there's no numbers, there's no symbols. Just 4 words, all lowercase, space in between, and it would take like this like 550 years to guess that. Whereas like if you're using, you know, sort of like a standard 8-character password with a number, that can be done like relatively quickly. So just having like more characters is really helpful and helps with your security and makes it harder for a computer to guess and easier for you to remember. So it's really like has 2 reasons to use it. I use something called like the Diceware method to create passwords, which you take dice, roll 4 or 5 times, and you get a string of numbers that corresponds to like a list with a random word. And then you do that 4 or 5 times to have your passphrase. And that way it's like random and secure. So the passphrases, 4 words is like the recommended, you can always do more. And then, yeah, it's hard for both people and computers to guess, which is really key. But having a unique passphrase for all of your different logins is difficult to remember, so it's really recommended to use a password manager. So there's like many different options out there. Most of them are free to keep track of your passwords for you. So this means you only need to remember 1 passphrase, which unlocks all your other passphrases for any website you use. And it encrypts the passwords, so someone just like on your computer couldn't access all of your passwords without knowing the master passphrase. And these also, if you don't want to use the dice method, these can also just like generate random passphrases for you. So you don't need to go through the work of that, and then we'll save them. And it really just makes it easier to manage all your different accounts because using like the same password for different logins is like not great, because if for example, like Facebook has a breach and you use your Facebook password for all your other accounts, whoever has access to that, like they know that people reuse passwords and often with the same username or email, so it can just like try and get access pretty easily to your other accounts. Yeah.
Do we trust these password managers? And if so, are those the 3 that you would recommend?
Yeah, so
trustworthy?
the one I use and would probably recommend is KeePass. It's open source, which means that its code is available for people to like examine and detect vulnerabilities. So that is like a reason why I trust it. But yeah, there's not like a reason to think that the other ones aren't trustworthy either, but that's like some reason why people prefer KeePass. Okay, so encryption, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this from like the Apple FBI debates. But so basically it's a process that takes a message, so an email, text, something like that, and makes it unreadable except for the person that knows how to decrypt it back into a readable form. So it uses like a mathematical algorithm to scramble your content. So how this works is called like public key and private key. So you can give others your public key, but only you have access to your private key. And then like when they send it to you, they match up so they're able to know that it can only be read by the intended recipient. It's like really basic. Find this video helpful if anyone wants to watch it later. But basically, so it's important to remember though that while your content, like your actual text that you're typing out, would be encrypted and inaccessible except to the recipient, still has metadata, which can be really revealing. So this is just an example of metadata like with an email. So it's going to have like the different accounts, who you're sending it to, the time sent, subject line. So you can think of this as like the encrypted information is what's inside an envelope, and then the metadata is like what's written outside that you would mail. So it would have like the return address, like you, the intended address, the date, and things like that. And then without encryption, basically your email or text is like a postcard, and it's like traveling through servers and is the content as well as the metadata is accessible. So really, if you have anything sensitive, it's best to use encryption. Signal, I just wanted to introduce some tools that are simple to use and provide end-to-end encryption. So Signal is a free app you can download. It has, like, you can make phone calls, text messages from it. It works the same as like a normal text message, so it's not, there's no sort of like user friendliness issues. It's intuitive and end-to-end encrypted so this is like a little bit different than say like Apple says iMessages are encrypted, and they are in a sense, but Apple can have access to them. So it's not as secure, and Signal also like doesn't record metadata. It was really great. There was this government subpoena for a bunch of like user records, and they just like don't have any records, so they just like weren't able to produce anything. So it's really, I think, the most recommended. WhatsApp is another option too. Okay. Yeah.
Like, how does that compare to like Snapchat or something?
As I understand it, Snapchat is not encrypted. So it's sending, like, if someone had the capability to intercept it, they could. And I think, I'm not totally sure, but I think that Snapchat stores like some version of your messages. So it's like the FTC has brought an action against Snapchat for like deceptive trade practices because they weren't sort of like vanishing as, yeah, so just be careful about that. I know they have changed some of their policies in response to that, but yeah, it's definitely not end-to-end encrypted, obviously. So this shows, like, this is like Signal's logo, and so this is showing like a call or text to people, and so it's like three-letter agencies, so it's supposed to be like NSA, FBI, CIA, and basically like because of end encryption, government or just like random eavesdropper is not able to intercept that. And then because this is National Lawyers Guild, I wanted to talk about protests because there are some specific concerns that can arise with protests, especially possibility of being arrested at protests. So just remember when you're going to a protest, I know this is probably obvious, but that your phone records your cell site location information. So there may be like reason that you don't want to be identified as being at a protest at a certain date and time. And so some people recommend, leaving your usual phone at home and bringing your burner phone. But I don't think most people have burner phones. But it's something you may want to consider if you think there's like a high risk of arrest. Your phone like could be seized by the police. So again, just like keep that in mind. You may want to like download and back up like your photos, messages, etc. before bringing your phone out, so they're not just on your phone, because you could like sometimes the police have like unintentionally wiped phones, may be intentional, shouldn't happen, but there is a risk, and there's also a risk of them just like seeing whatever you have on there. And then you might want to consider, again, like if your phone is seized, having like a phone number on your body just in case you're able to make a call and don't have your phone. And then Signal is like recommended if you were trying to communicate with your friends, with fellow protesters at or like leading up to the event, so that those aren't able to be intercepted. And then this is like an interesting legal point about protecting your phone with a passcode rather than your fingerprint. So there are like circuit splits about this. So it hasn't gotten to the Supreme Court yet, and hopefully we can get an answer at some point. But right now, lots of courts have held that your passcode is protected by the Fifth Amendment, but your fingerprint is not. So, and the rationale is that if the police is asking for your passcode, they're asking you to like make a testimonial act. So you're like bringing up sort of like thoughts, information, and giving it to them that could lead to like self-incrimination of what's on your phone. Whereas your fingerprint is not considered like invasive like testimony is. So they're able to like compel you to give your fingerprint. And then just like a practical note, just because like the police can't compel you to give up your passcode, they can still like pressure you, and like lots of times they'll cite local like city ordinances or laws stating otherwise, but right now at least you do have a constitutional right to not incriminate yourself by giving your passcode over. And it is still possible for the police to detain you for some time if you're not cooperating by giving your passcode over. Okay, and then also like this is probably like the most specific to the current administration at the border. There have been an unprecedented amount of searches of people's phones and laptops at the border. I think it's more in, I have a news article just later, but more in all of like just this year, 2017, than like all of the previous year. The searches, so it's still like relatively uncommon, like less than 1% of all travelers, but they've been like using the government's always claimed this authority, but they're like using it a lot more under the current administration. So it is like legally murky whether you have constitutional rights at the border, which I find like pretty surprising if you're a U.S. citizen that you're at like the U.S.-Mexico border that you would not be considered to have constitutional rights. But the government's claimed they have this sort of like zone, I think it's 100 miles like from the border, that's like a constitution-free zone basically, citing like national security reasons. So even if you're a citizen, your rights like are limited there, and the Supreme Court has, in 2014, had a case called Riley versus California, where they ruled that the Fourth Amendment requires the police to obtain a warrant before searching the smartphone of someone under arrest. But they have not ruled about like the specificity of the border issue. So right now, the Fourth Amendment does not protect you at the border, like at the airport, if you're traveling internationally. And so, like the Customs and Border Patrol like they can't stop you from coming into the country if you refuse to comply, because Americans have almost an absolute right to like return home to their country of citizenship, but they still could like detain you for hours and like put you through this process of trying to like wear you down to voluntarily give over your passcode. And they're not required to return your device to you once you leave the airport. They can conduct what's called like a cursory search on the spot, but they might also download the full contents of your device and keep a copy of your data. And they may also like say they need to keep your physical devices because they want to perform a more comprehensive like forensic search. The CBP like claims the authority to hold onto your devices for 5 days, but extenuating circumstances, if they cite that, it can be extended by 7-day increments. And like the full limits of this hasn't really been tested, but some people have reported that their phones have been held for weeks or even months. So it's something to keep in mind, and it's really a personal decision about how much you're willing to like resist if you're asked for that. There is some good news that just last week, a couple senators, Ron Wyden, Rand Paul, and then 2 representatives from the House, introduced a bill that would require law enforcement to obtain a warrant before they can search citizens' phones at the border. So if that gets through, like that would be a win for privacy rights. And then non-US citizens at the border, obviously it's like more complicated. If you have like lawful permanent residence, you should be treated like effectively the same. But I think that the current administration, like as of just like people reporting and news articles like that, they've really been pushing the limits of how much they can get away with for people that aren't citizens. And yeah, if you're concerned about this, you may want to like, consult an immigration lawyer. And it's really, there are like very serious consequences for people that aren't citizens, because the Customs Border Patrol can like block you because you're not a citizen, so you don't have like the right to return to the country. So they can block you and really interfere if you're applying to become a citizen or for lawful permanent resident status. So it's really best to take some, this is both for citizens and non-citizens, to take some precautions before you're traveling internationally. The best thing to do is like data minimization. It's just travel with as little data and as few devices as possible. So if you want to back up your data like on an external hard drive or to the cloud, and then wipe it from your device when you're traveling, so that's not able to be searched if it's not on your device. You can encrypt, like fully encrypt your computer and phone. And you should always have like a password at the very least on your computer and phone, because if you don't have a password, it's like much easier for them to get access. Okay, and then so this was just really basic overview, and I just wanted to touch on some recent concerns. But I put links to resources in here, so I can email it out to the National Lawyers Guild group. But EFF is a really great resource for different different reasons, different threat models, like different reasons you need to protect yourself from surveillance or like specific concerns. So like for instance, like there's tips like specific for LGBTQ people, and the specific threats that they might face, protecting yourself on social networks. I just listed 3 that you might find interesting, but there's like a ton of them, and it's available in a bunch of different languages. So really relevant for people that aren't citizens, especially like with the amount of deportations we've seen recently. It's really important that people know what rights they do have, even if they're not citizens, and what just like technological steps they can take to protect themselves. And then tools, like I mentioned, Signal. I decided to cut out for length purposes, but Tor browser, which is a web browser that works like Chrome, as easy to use as like Chrome or Firefox, but it makes your web browsing anonymous. So people might find this more important to use now, especially with like the resolution that was recently passed and signed by the president that like repeals FCC privacy regulations relating to internet service providers. So now like your internet service providers have this full picture of your internet browsing activities, which I don't think anyone like is really like proud of their browsing history. And having this like comprehensive view can really be a lot more invasive than just like saying Twitter, having access to what you're doing on Twitter. So anyways, you may want to explore using Tor browser for that. And these are links to password managers, and then some recent news articles like relating to this. I think this quiz is really great. It just asks you like different things you do, and you can kind of get a sense of whether like your daily practices are keeping you safe or like leaving you vulnerable to threats. So then just that's all I have for you. If you have any questions. Yeah.
Two questions. One on how do I encrypt my email, or if it's possible to encrypt it. And there are Fisher or spy softwares that could be remotely installed and activated on my PC. How do I see if I'm being surveilled? Is there a software for that?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part about phishing?
Sorry, the last one, is there a software like, there was Detect, I'm not sure if it's active anymore, softwares that could see if you're being surveyed, that you could check to see if you're being surveyed?
Yeah, so as far as encrypting email, the best thing to do is called PGP, which gives you, I didn't go over it because I find it's kind of complicated to set up, but if you are concerned about that, it's really worth it. Like you'll see on lots of like journalists pages or articles, they'll say like if you wish to submit a tip to the New York Times, like use my public, like send it to my public key, so they know that any tips like would be kept encrypted. So basically it's like the string of numbers that's specific to you, and I can like direct you to how to do that after. But yeah, so what I was talking before, like public and private key, and that would keep your email encrypted, like your text or encrypted with Signal. It still does leave like the metadata open, so that's just something to be aware of, but the content will be encrypted. And I can show you how to do that.
And so,
I'm not sure exactly about that. I think like virus blockers are probably the best, but I can like look into that more. But some like phishing attacks.
like just to give a background on
Yeah.
that, the EEF had brought a suit against the Ethiopian government
Yeah.
for spying on a US
Yeah.
national. I just wanted to see if there was a software that is publicly available that one could use to fight for their rights.
Yeah. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I will. That's like an interesting question. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer right now for you, but yeah, I can look into that.
So is Google like incognito not actually safe?
Yeah.
Anonymous browser?
No, not really. So it's safe as far as like your local device and browser. So I think it's real. I don't know. I don't see like a whole lot of use for it besides like hiding things from someone that may be looking at your computer, or just wanting to keep things private from. Well, I mean, it is useful, say like if you have a shared computer, say like at a public library or something that you're using, and you don't want there to be a record of that or something like that. But your internet service provider, like Comcast or AT&T or whoever, can still see all the sites you visited. So that's why I would recommend using Tor. It basically bounces your traffic around to a bunch of different proxy servers. That makes it like pretty much impossible to trace it to you. So, yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
I was wondering, Signal, does it work like WhatsApp? That like actually in order for your message to be encrypted, you have to go through Signal, and the other person has to be a member of the application as well? Okay.
Yeah, it does, unfortunately. So one thing, like you can see if you download Signal, it'll show like your contact, like who has it already, which is nice. But yeah, it does work like that where you both have to have the app on your phone for that to work. Okay. Well, oh yeah, so there.
No, I just wanted another fact.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, definitely come up and finish the food, and let me know after this, or if you want to email me if I can help, like direct you towards anything that could be helpful for you or any specific concerns you have about your security.